Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to another live stream here on the channel. Hopefully everyone's having a fantastic Wednesday so far. Let's see what we have in the chat today. We have, we have Evans, Sam, Cody, Caleb, Catman, Severe Storm, LWX24, Craig, The Gaming, as well as Lakeisha, Ponderosa, Green California, Cameron, Jordan, and Dane, Voice of Liberty, Godzilla. Wow, we got Godzilla in here. Welcome, everybody, to another stream on the channel. Hopefully, you're all having a fantastic day. Pete, as well, welcome to the stream. Yeah, let's go ahead and switch on over to our main screen here. Make sure I close it out. I did. That's good. Alrighty, so we're going to be talking about a few severe weather threats today. We're also going to be going over today's threat for severe weather in the Pacific Northwest, and we'll probably end up covering it just a little bit. I don't think I will be here for the next 5 hours throughout the entire event, but we'll probably at least just take a look at some storms as they begin to initiate, whenever that may be. So, yeah, welcome to the stream, everybody else. If I forgot to welcome you, or if you're just tuning in or maybe not chatting, glad to have you here. Welcome to the stream. And we're going to dive right on into this, starting with our SPC outlooks. I did forget to turn on our names there. There you go. Now you can see all the towns in the U.S. So we're going to start with today's risk for severe weather. And that is going to be up here in the northwestern United States. So you could see here, we actually have a extremely rare slight risk for severe weather up here in Washington and Oregon. For this time of year, this is extremely unusual, especially for the hail threat. They have introduced a SIG hail threat here for the potential of up to 2.5-inch hail. So we're looking at hailstones that haven't been seen in this area in the month of March before, being a possibility all the way from Seattle, Washington, all the way into Portland, Oregon, and even well far south of that, almost into the Roseburg area in southwestern Oregon. Another thing that is very rare, well, before I move on, I just want to mention that this SIG hail risk is actually, from what I've heard, it is the first significant hail risk on record for this area. It doesn't matter what month you go to, I believe this is the first significant hail risk that we've ever seen out here in western Washington, western Oregon. And then the tornado risk is a 5%. This one's a little bit different. This is the first 5% tornado risk we've seen in the month of March. We have seen 5% out here, pretty sure outside of the month of March, but being March, obviously the 26th right now, this is the first 5% we've seen in the month of March for western Washington and western Oregon. And this is the first tornado risk, I believe, since 2020. Like the first proper 5% setup in tornado risk out here. There may have been a 2%. I feel like we've had 2% before, but this is the first, apparently the first good tornado risk since 2020 in terms of a 5% being issued. So I assume we had a 5% tour out here, probably in like sometime in the summer out here in 2020. But either way, this is a historic risk. Like I said, we've never seen a significant hail risk in the month of March for Washington, Oregon, or my bad, any month, period. We haven't seen a sig hail risk, and then the tornado risk also very historic there. So this is like a once in a, probably about a once in a 40-year hail risk right here. It's not something that this area sees often by any means. It's very, very, very rare. The tornado risk is probably about once in every 10 to 15 years for the month of March. You'll end up with a risk that's like a 2% tornado risk, or almost, or maybe even is a 5%. So the tornado risk isn't as rare as that hail risk. But overall today, where we have both the tornado risk and the hail risk both on the same exact day for this area, that makes it at least a once in a 50-year event, if not significantly longer than that. So there's your level 1 marginal risk in the green, and a level 2 there in the slight out of 5. And it's just not something I've ever seen before. I've never seen a slight risk up here for tornadoes and hail, or either one of them, in the month of March. So very unique setup. We'll go over that setup in a little bit as well. We also have a marginal risk out here in South Central Texas, level 1 out of 5 there. That's for the extreme southern portions of Texas there. So we'll keep an eye on that. They've never had a 5%. Really, Livid? I was for sure they probably... I heard that they had one in 2020, but you can access the records much better than me, so I'll trust you on that one. So apparently they've never had a 5% before. Let's see here. In that specific area, you've never had a 5%. Okay, so the states of Washington and Oregon, they've had a 5% before, but just not this portion of Washington and Oregon before. So this is the first one on record, period. Like, it doesn't matter what month you go to, it's the first one. That's crazy. That's crazy. I remember in California, we were tracking a crazy atmospheric river in 2021. That had a tornado risk, but that never got up to Washington and Oregon. But that's insane. Then as we go on into tomorrow, we do have 2 other slight risks for severe weather. We actually have a bimodal severe weather setup here. Doesn't seem like it, but it definitely is bimodal. As you can see, 2 separate threats for severe weather here. Level 1, level 2 up here out of 5, and a level 1, level 2 down here out of 5. Primary threat for tomorrow will be damaging winds. We've got the chance for up to 70-mile-an-hour winds out here in far south central Texas. Also, hail will be an issue in both areas, up to about 2-inch in diameter hail, maybe slightly less than that. And then we could see a spin-up tornado or 2, both on the southern risk and the northern risks. So all hazards mode for tomorrow possible. I don't see anything very significant with tomorrow. It doesn't look really that special. I don't see it being like a surprise tornado risk or a ridiculous threat for severe weather. Just some isolated severe storms tomorrow night up here near the Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri borders there. And then in Texas, it's an all-day risk. Storms really don't stop from today. They're going to continue for the next about 72 hours or so, 48 to 72 hours out there in southern Texas. Which if we go to the day 3 outlook, you can see that there. We've got another large marginal risk for severe weather out here in Texas into Louisiana and Arkansas. And then another one way up here in Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, and Nebraska, as well as up here in northwestern Kansas. And yeah, we can't go into the probabilities of that. And that is for, let me think, so Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So this would be for Saturday here, and we do not have a risk for severe weather outlined for Saturday. I do still believe we could see a marginal introduced in this area just in case any storms do fire, but not many, if any, model runs actually fire storms on Saturday. It's going to be Sunday that steals the show, probably this week. And that's going to be a huge slight risk for severe weather, all the way from north central Ohio, central Illinois, central Missouri, all the way back down to the Gulf coastline here, southeast Texas, south central Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, all inside that risk for severe weather. They haven't introduced an enhanced risk just yet, but I do believe we are still in for an eventual enhanced risk somewhere in this area. Models have still stayed consistent on a notable threat for all hazards in that area. I do think the tornado threat is going to be a little bit lower with this system due to the trough not being a very amplified and potent trough ejection. So that's good news. Still probably going to end up seeing a couple tornadoes out of this, maybe a strong tornado threat. But I don't think it's going to be a ridiculous outbreak of tornadoes, for instance, like what we saw on the 14th and 15th of this month. Still probably going to end up with tornadoes, though. It still looks like an all hazards day. I just don't think it will be a historic day for tornadoes. And then as we go on into Monday here, now you can see that risk does continue. Probably going to have the opportunity for a few tornadoes on this day, although it will definitely be significantly lower. We'll probably have two risks for tornadoes. Probably one on the southern end out here. And then we may have a secondary threat for tornadoes closer to the actual trough or low pressure back up here in Virginia, North Carolina. Or they may just end up outlining a very large 2% tornado risk at some point out here for Monday. But either way, the primary threat by a milestone will be damaging winds with brief spin-up tornadoes. Probably some isolated small to large hail as well being possible. Definitely a lot larger of a question mark for Monday's threat in terms of specifics. Sunday's has a little bit more certainty with it. Then into Tuesday, we haven't had any changes for Tuesday. Still not expecting much severe weather at the moment for Tuesday. We'll go over some model runs. We're getting a new model run now, actually. But I do think we will end up with severe weather either on Tuesday or Wednesday. Right now, it looks like models are starting to agree on Wednesday. So this day 8 is Wednesday, which is here. You can see there's nothing outlined. So I do think we'll have a chance for some severe storms, probably along the southern portion of the U.S. And it doesn't look significant. It looks like just a small little shortwave that will enter Texas, Louisiana, and increase the threat for wind, small hail, and maybe a tornado threat. It's a little too far out to say much about a tornado threat there on Wednesday. That's all your SPC outlooks for the days 1 through 8. Let's go ahead and get on into some model runs so that way I can show you guys. Let me see here. I gotta find the right scene. This one. Oh, yep, there is your severe watch. Let's see. You were 10% off from a tornado watch out here in the Pacific Northwest. So that's a 25 tornado risk for your severe watch there. And you can see hail. As expected, hail is the primary threat with a 60-60 there. So we definitely have the opportunity for some very large hail up here. And there you go. That's all the way from just south of Portland in Oregon all the way up into... Yes, that does include Seattle, Washington there. I wanted to zoom in, just double check. So there you go. There's your new severe watch. So as we pull our model run out here, it's very difficult to see, but you can at least on the far left side of this map, you can at least see there is a trough up here. And that trough is very, very amplified, which is going to allow for our severe threat up there in the Pacific Northwest today. As we go through Thursday and into Friday, we're going to continue to see a little tiny shortwave make its way across the far southeastern portions of Texas into Louisiana, Mississippi. That's what's going to just cause a lot of rain. You can see here it's just going to cause multiple days of rain and probably lower end severe weather. We could see an isolated significant hazard like an isolated gust up to 70 or an isolated hailstone as large as 1.75 over the next 3 days out here in Texas and Louisiana, but it's not a notable risk for severe weather. Then as we go ahead and pull this out further, This is Saturday's risk for severe weather, at least on our GFS model run. This is what the thinking is on the 500 millibar wind speed. So we should see a little tiny shortwave move across the central United States on Saturday. If that shortwave increases in strength at all, it might just have enough forcing to fire some thunderstorms here. If we go ahead and show that, you can see the GFS has it remaining 2 weak, so we don't end up with any severe weather on Saturday, at least according to the GFS. We'll look at the NAM here in just a little bit. Then as we go on into Sunday, look at this. Our GFS model run finally has fixed itself. If you tuned into yesterday's live stream, we noted that it was still dealing with its progressive bias and coming in too strong. It's now fixed that, and it does indeed look more normal. It looks like what we're expecting, which is a short wave, pretty strong short wave trough moving across Oklahoma, Kansas, Texas in the morning hours of Sunday. And then that sets up right over Arkansas, Tennessee, Illinois here Sunday afternoon. So that would put the greatest threat, the absolute greatest threat for severe weather right across this general vicinity here. If we look at some ingredients, here's your supercell composite. Wow. Look at that. Pretty much nailed it. Pretty much nailed it. So that's where our greatest risk for severe weather will be on Sunday. However, storms will probably end up firing a little bit later. So our best opportunity for storm coverage in the form of discrete supercells will probably end up being towards Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky. And I do think this has the best opportunity for a strong tornado threat in the overnight hours, as opposed to it probably being in the day. This should actually end up being more of a nocturnal threat for tornadoes, because that's when your lower level jet will end up ramping up the most. As we get closer, we'll figure out if it's going to be a fully nocturnal threat, or maybe this is a little bit too fast still. If we look at the Euro, yeah, you can see the Euro does not have it being as much of a nocturnal tornado threat. It's also more west on the Euro. The Canadian model run is way too fast. That is way too fast for our severe threat. But yeah, if we go and take a look at our instability here on the GFS. So this is why we have such a large risk. Look at how huge this open warm sector is. So that's where you have a lot of instability that is favorable for severe weather. So we're going to see a lot of severe storms probably Sunday evening or so. All across this area. The highest threat for this day will probably end up being large hail and damaging winds. And then that tornado threat is going to be the absolute most confined to the greatest lower level jet mixed in with the greatest forcing, which should be, like I already drew out, somewhere generally in here, at least at 5 o'clock on Sunday, according to this model run. So that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking our tornado threat is going to be more focused on like this region in here. That would be the best opportunity for a strong tornado threat. I don't think we're going to end up with a widespread tornado outbreak where we end up with tornadoes all the way from like northern Illinois all the way to the Gulf coastline. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think we will end up with probably severe storms along much of that area, probably in the form of damaging winds and small to large hail. But the greatest tornado threat, in my opinion, is going to be focused somewhere in this region. As we get closer, we'll be able to nail that down more and more, and then the SPC will probably eventually upgrade to an enhanced risk. Also, as we get towards our CAM models, which we'll get those on very late Friday into, well, actually, I believe the first one is going to be very late Friday night, right? Let's see, our NAM 3K goes out to Saturday morning already, so it will probably be Friday morning that we get the NAM 3K model run to reach out this far, and then Friday night we'll get the HRRR. But overall, I'm not extremely impressed with this setup for severe weather. Like I said before, I don't think this will be some historic outbreak or some extremely high-end setup for severe weather. It looks like all model runs have trended towards a weaker trough. So if we go to like the GFS yesterday, see, this was a scenario. This was one of the scenarios here where we could end up with more of a widespread, significant tornado threat. But every model run has backed off from that scenario. You will not be able to, I believe you won't be able to find a single model run that shows a trough that amplified for Sunday's threat. Then we go on into Monday here, and there's going to be two little areas to watch. So we'll get a second shortwave that will probably sneak across the US. You can see that right in here on the Euro, the GFS, and the Canadian. They all have that secondary shortwave, and that will probably provide a secondary threat for tornadoes out here in the southern United States. And then as that trough moves more to the northeast, that also might increase the tornado threat across the mid-Atlantic area towards the late evening hours as well. So we'll keep an eye on Monday. Right now, I'm not very concerned for it tornado-wise. I think it's going to be mainly a widespread damaging wind threat. But yeah, you can see the greatest tornado ingredients will probably be along the Gulf coastline here, the southern U.S. on Monday, with potentially a secondary area back up here in Virginia, North Carolina. But I really just believe this is going to be another wind bag as opposed to a solid tornado threat for Monday. All right, that's where our 18Z stops right there. So let's go to our 12Z GFS. So Wednesday, you can see Wednesday, there's not really a lot of very notable troughing happening out here. We're probably going to end up with a shortwave somewhere in this vicinity. If we look at the Euro, okay, that's the wrong time frame, Euro. What are you doing? What? Hold on a second. Wow. Well, that's something. Okay, so uncertainty is very high on that day. Got it. Because you have the Euro that's doing a ridiculous tornado outbreak. You have the Canadian that is like a full 5-6 days too slow. And then you have the GFS, which doesn't even have the trough there. So I'm not really going to dive too in depth on that. Gracious. Yeah, see, that's your Midwest season that we were talking about in our tornado season forecast. As we go towards April, things are probably going to start shifting slightly more north as well. So we should have better opportunities for severe weather in this area as we go into April compared to March. But I wouldn't be so certain on it happening to that extent. So just keep an eye on the April, I'd say the April 2nd. Wait, hold on. Nope. Definitely, yeah, okay. It does look like April 2nd. Yeah, from about April 2nd all the way till about April 6th or April 7th. So from the 2nd to the 7th of April, keep an eye on the potential for severe weather. There's a lot of uncertainty. We're going to have to get through this trough first. This little guy right there. So once we get through Sunday and Monday's threat, and then on Tuesday, which is the 1st of April, then we'll be able to figure out if we're going to end up with a very significant threat for severe weather or not. We're in for a very active April, though. We are definitely in for a very, very active severe weather season here. And I think that will continue all the way through early, maybe mid-May. Again, at some point, I think in mid or late May, we're probably going to end up with a very strong high pressure that moves into the central U.S. and probably stops our severe threat for a couple days or maybe a week or so. What do you think the tornado probabilities will be from the SPC on Sunday as of now? So that's too difficult to say. We're far out. But if I had to give you my absolute best guess, I would say a 10 sig tornado risk is definitely a possibility across this area here on Sunday. Somewhere in there. I don't think it would be that big. Just the uncertainty is too high at this point. That's why they don't do probabilities for tornadoes this far out. But I think a 10 sig is... Honestly, I think a 10 sig is like the ceiling here. I don't think we'll end up getting... Even if like this uptrends a bunch on the strength of the trough, I don't think we could see much more than a 10 sig tornado risk out of this. because it's just not extremely favorable for tornadoes. These tiny little short waves are typically more of big-time damaging wind threats, large hail threats, and then your spin-up tornado threats that may or may not be a strong tornado threat, depending on when that lower-level jet kicks in. But it's too difficult to say exactly what probability they will introduce. But my personal opinion is we'll probably end up seeing a 10 sig somewhere in there. The Euro, let me see what the Euro has. Yeah, see, the Euro has it a little bit more west. A little bit more west for that greatest tornado threat. Just slightly, maybe into southeast Oklahoma as well. And then the Canadian model run, that has your greatest tornado threat being generally in the same spot. Yeah, generally in the same spot. But you have a very, very weak lower level jet. So there you go. That's another uncertainty there. Your lower level jet is not fully expected to be very strong. So they do all agree that the lower level jet will increase as we go towards late evening Sunday in western Tennessee. So all of your model runs do agree this area will get a little area of 35, 40 knot lower level jet. So I wouldn't be surprised if we have a strong tornado threat eventually. Yeah, 10 sig is a 10 hatched. Basically the opportunity for a couple tornadoes with one or two possibly being strong. That's my thinking at the moment. But again, it is far out. It is far out. So things could downtrend and we don't end up with anything higher than a 5%. Or things may go ridiculous on an uptrend, which I don't see that happening. I feel like it would be too difficult to see a big uptrend here. Like, you would have to have... Your whole trough would have to change. Your whole trough would have to change, being realistic. It does have that negative tilt on the GFS and the Euro, which is why they've outlined that risk for severe weather, because it's going to be able to pull up so much instability. If we look again, you can see all the instability it pulls up here. 1,000 plus instability in this entire area here for Sunday at 5 p.m. So it's going to pull up a very large open warm sector, which will allow for very widespread damaging winds and widespread small to large hail. And then, like I mentioned before, I think we'll have a more confined tornado threat. And then looking here, I do want to show you. This is what has me worried for April 1st and 2nd. If the Euro is correct, look at all this moisture that would just be sitting here in the Gulf, right? So if we go to the Euro, I bet this moisture is going to go so far north, it's absurd. Yep. So you've got 70-degree dew points into almost central Mississippi. Look at that. Almost into central Mississippi, central Alabama. So that does have me a little bit more concerned. And with the Euro setup, it is a much better kinematic setup. You can see that extremely, extremely large lower level jet. Very, very large lower level jet there. Comparing that to Sunday's. Let's see. Okay, there's Sunday's lower level jet right there. That is Sunday's lower level jet. So comparing Sundays to whatever risk we may see here in the beginning of April. Big difference. However, watch this. In the click of one button, we'll switch to the GFS. And it's all gone. It is all gone. Canadian. Ooh, Canadian does have it. But definitely not nearly as potent of a negatively tilted trough. Not nearly as amplified. So, let's go check our favorite graph and see what that has to say. CFS here. Okay, GFS ensembles. There you go. Make sure you guys can see this. There we go. So there is Sunday's threat. Right there. Very obvious. And then there's your signal on April 2nd. April 1st, April 2nd, right around there. And then look at that. Another signal starting up April 5th. So 1, 2, 3 severe weather threats definitely look possible on this particular run of your ensembles here. So that's interesting. What day was that? April 5th? Yep, there's April 5th on the GFS. Gracious day. Gracious day. Wow, that would be a very, very interesting, wow. That would probably be one of the better setups for the Midwest that we've seen in early April. If that were to happen. Look at all that. April 5th on Saturday. And what is the confidence on this? Pretty low. Pretty low. You could see just a very, very large, broad area of green supercell composite. So not really anything I'm really worried about. Let's look at the... Well, that's definitely a bit more of a concern. Yeah. Yeah. The 500 millibar wind speeds average looking at that's more of a concern. Because this is all 20 ensembles put into one map, so we'll need to keep an eye on that. Palm Sunday, when's that? I know that day had a big outbreak before. What day is that? Is that April 6th? Let me go back here. I want to see April 2nd. Yeah, there's definitely a signal for April 2nd there. But it's... Yeah, it's definitely varying in intensity. So there's definitely 2 severe threats. There is definitely a severe threat that we're going to keep an eye on for April 2nd and right around April 2nd, April 5th. Both of those days. Yep, Palm Sunday is on the 13th. Well, that's way too far out to look at anything. Nothing's going to go out that far unless you use the CFS. Yo, that's crazy. What? I don't get this model run sometimes. I just really don't get this model run. This is out for, actually the day before Palm Sunday, so April 12th. But it's horribly inaccurate. Like, it is horribly inaccurate. It's, like, worse than the GFS inaccurate. So, I look at it more just for fun. I don't think I've ever taken this model run seriously at all. Yeah, look at that. It shows now that's a good old Omega block right there at the end of April. Really good Omega block. 2023 Omega block right there. There you go. No severe weather in the US. April's canceled. Yeah, but I think the CFS like does that all the time. Yep, there it is again on an older model run. Let's go to a very old model run, see if it spit it out somewhere else. There's a huge high pressure there on April 20th. It loves high pressures. I've noticed that. The CFS always loves high pressures. And I see a lot of people post it. Oh, yeah, there's another one. Jeez. Look at that one. I see some people posted on Twitter too, and being like early April's not going to be active because of a high pressure, and they're using the CFS model run 600 hours out or something. I'm like, you guys do know that's going to like completely change, right? Like, that's literally not going to happen. I don't. I wonder if the CFS has ever nailed any severe threats once in its life before. Like, past the 180-hour mark, if it's ever nailed anything. Yeah, see, look, this is what it thinks for Sunday. There's another one for Sunday, so it did fix that over the last few runs. That's April 2nd, which could be one of our severe threats out there in the central southern U.S. And then, what was it? April 6th? Yeah. And it doesn't show much for April 6th. The reason for that is because you get multiple threats. So you, instead of getting a threat on April 6th, this model run shows a threat on April 2nd, April 3rd, April 4th, and then it maybe a little one on April 5th, and then a high pressure on April 6th and April 7th. But that's just too far out. And like I said, I'm just looking at that for fun. I'm not looking at that for any forecasting purposes. But yeah, if you guys are enjoying the live stream, make sure you leave a like on the stream, share this stream and channel with your family, friends, social media. It's greatly appreciated. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button with the notification bell set to all so you know when I go live or upload a video. We are still going to be live here for quite a while longer. We're only like 40 minutes in. So yeah, just some storms firing off here in Oregon. Let's go look at the HRRR. So here's your newest HRRR run out here in the Pacific Northwest. And you can see here about 7, 8 o'clock, probably right at 7:15 or so, we'll start to see some stronger storms begin to fire out here in west central Oregon. This is in Eastern time, by the way. So 7:15 Eastern time, putting that to Pacific, it's probably like, man, I can't do that conversion in my head. Is it like 4:15? About 4:15, something like that. It's got to be pretty close. I'm probably an hour off or so. And then going into about 8 p.m. Eastern time, that's going to continue to move off to the northeast. And this should really just be a big-time hail threat. I do think we could see a spin-up tornado or two, but I really think the biggest issue here is hail. I think most of these updraft helicity tracks are for hail, not for tornadoes. Now, look at that. That's not something you see every day in the northwestern U.S. Look at all those updraft helicity tracks. That's more of something you see in April in the Central Plains or in Dixie Alley. Not out here in Oregon and Washington State. That is something. And like I said, I think most of this is for hail. You can see that's where your greatest threat for hail and spin-up tornado is, right in there. So I think we could see a few tornadoes. Like I said, 1, 2 tornadoes or so. But that hail threat is the biggest issue. Like I mentioned before, up to 2.5-inch hail being possible out here. Just not a setup that you see often whatsoever. You're looking at over 2,500 instability in southwestern Washington, west central Oregon. Just a crazy setup. Not something you see often at all. Take a look at the 500 millibar here. There is your trough. I mean, gracious. Gracious day. That is a, that is so negative that I don't know if it's even considered negative anymore. Like a classic negative tilt is this way. That sucker is pointing dead east. That is a ridiculous trough. And then that's going to swing right on into the Pacific Northwest, going into tonight and extremely early tomorrow morning. Going on into Friday, that low is still just going to sit out there in the far northeastern Pacific. And then eventually it's just going to keep us at a very active pattern. I mean, we're in for a very, very active pattern here. That's your new GFS for April 4th. Gracious. How different is that from the last one? Way different. Way different. So there's so much uncertainty on this. Let me show you guys how much uncertainty there is. This is the GFS. I'll zoom y'all out for a bit. So this is the GFS in its last few runs. And look how much it changes. Now, look at that. You see that? The last 3 or 4 runs. Notice how it's completely different. Completely different. Completely different. Completely different. And then it starts to kind of agree there. See the trough out there in the 4 corners? Another trough near the 4 corners. And then it really doesn't move like a ridiculous amount. It's still a lot of uncertainty, but there is still, on the last like 4 runs or so, there is a trough present out here on April 4th. Whereas if you go like 5 runs back, you could see it's a high pressure. There's a high pressure there out in this area, maybe a little south. So we are getting some consistencies on that, and I think that's why the ensembles are hinting towards that severe threat being a possibility now. This lower level jet should be crazy too. Yeah, look at that. Huge lower level jet. What in the world? Look at the GFS, man. This is snowfall totals. It just takes a narrow corridor of like a foot of snow across southern Canada and then into the northeast US. And then like another foot of snow in Wisconsin. Man. I don't miss forecasting winter at all. Forecasting winter is a utter nightmare. It is a nightmare. I don't miss it one single bit. Winter is my least favorite season for forecasting. Gracious. Yeah, that's the GFS again for April 4th. Just a wild setup over Missouri there. 3,000 Cape, 40 knot lower level jet. A lot of NATO ingredients, but thankfully this is far out. So we'll just keep an eye on it. A lot is going to change. This could literally, it's so far out to the point where it could actually just literally disappear off the model run. So just way too far out. It's still good to acknowledge if we're having any agreement of severe weather that far out, but you don't want to do much more than just looking at some agreement with it. Don't look too much into specifics or any hazards or anything like that. It's too far out. Yeah, this is Sunday's trough right here. So we have a little tiny short wave. It's going to move across the central and south central US. It's going to bring a very widespread wind threat and small hail threat across much of this region here on Sunday. Much of that area on Sunday, March 30th. The greatest tornado threat should be focused just out in front of that trough, which is going to set up somewhere in this area. For Sunday, it's a little too difficult to say exactly where it will set up or exactly how strong it will be, but generally somewhere in that vicinity is where we have the best agreement for the tornado threat being. And I think we're dealing with a very widespread wind threat and a widespread small to large hail threat, and then a more isolated tornado threat, or rather a more concentrated tornado threat. I don't think we'll see like a huge area under the gun for a tornado outbreak. I think we'll have more of a confined region for a couple tornadoes, maybe 1 or 2 strong. Unless something ridiculous changes. Which is definitely possible. But hopefully it will not uptrend. It doesn't look like a very notable threat for severe weather. It's just going to be, it's more of your average March system. That's what it is. It's an average March system. It doesn't look like it's going to be historic or absolutely absurd or anything like that. It's just a normal March system. Yeah, definitely a lot of severe weather signals after the 30th. There's just severe weather signals on every single day. We'll have to eventually just work out which one of those days are actually going to end up being severe weather, but I mean, starting on Sunday, there's severe threats going to be possible from Sunday through all the way till like the 9th of April, or maybe even more than that. We're going to have a lot of daily severe weather threats. We just got to figure out which ones are going to be very notable and which ones are going to be, pretty much nothing. Yeah, damaging winds and hail is the biggest concern. There's definitely a threat for tornadoes, but I just don't see the tornado threat being very notable with this system. Like I said, I think it's going to be a very widespread wind threat, widespread small to large hail threat, and then a more confined tornado threat. The main reason for that tornado threat being confined is probably because of your lower level jet. And I'm looking for something else here too. Let me go back to the GFS. Can't find it. I'll just do this. 500 millibars again. Yeah, so you can see this very large area of defluence here, where you have winds going this way, winds going up this way. So that's a large area of defluence, which means there's a big void in the atmosphere. A lot of storms are going to fire on Sunday. I mean, look at the GFS. It literally has storms. Gracious. It has storms everywhere. Now, given most of these wouldn't be severe, the main threat for severe storms would be on this particular frame. On this particular frame at 2 p.m. Sunday, the best chance for severe weather would be back out here. But gracious day, this is not a fun look for race day on Sunday. So there's Martinsville right there, literally right where I live. And there's when the race is supposed to start on the GFS. Not fun. Let me see if the Euro has anything. Yeah. Yeah, when all three global model runs say you're going to get rain and it's only about 98 or so hours out, you're probably going to be getting rain. Something big is going to have to change for us not to be rained out on Sunday. I will. I will double. I definitely will. I know for a fact I'm going to get them in October. But I probably will on Sunday, as long as it's not rained out. But that's why I'm probably not going to be able to cover Sunday. I'm going to be spending time at the track or something else. But we'll see. And then Saturday is going to be iffy for a live stream too. But I'll definitely keep y'all updated for sure through the community post. Unfortunately, this just happened to land on the weekend of race day. And it just happens to be a threat for severe weather over my area too. Now, thankfully, the severe threat is on Monday for me and not on Sunday. But still, Sunday looks like it's probably going to be rained out. So, it's today. Today's Wednesday. So tomorrow, I know I'm busy. The next stream on this channel will probably end up being Friday. Unless I'm at the truck race Friday night. Truck race runs from 7:30 to 10 p.m. Eastern. So unless I'm at the truck race Friday night, we'll be live. Which, again, I'll just keep you guys updated on community post. But yeah, we're probably about to wrap it up here, honestly. I appreciate all over 1,000 of you tuning in. We had about 150 something people watching at one point, so I really appreciate it. That's really, really good that I'm able to get the word out about this severe weather threat. Like I said, I'm sorry I won't be able to cover it. This is one of the rare threats that I won't be able to cover. Normally, I could just push aside whatever I have planned, but NASCAR is not exactly going to push aside a full race just so I can stream. I don't think that's possible, but hey, if it rains, maybe, maybe, just maybe. You never know. SCP Supercell Composite, probably. I can't leave. That's illegal. Watch. Watch me. How's it looking like for your area? Definitely damaging winds and definitely the chance for some hail. Probably small hail, damaging winds 60 to 70 miles per hour will be the biggest threat. The tornado threat is the most uncertain. The tornado threat is just... It's really a big question mark on this day. Like I mentioned before, I think it will be more of a localized tornado threat, probably somewhere in this area. The thing is, I don't know how far north, west, south, or east it's going to go, and I don't know how high end it's going to be. So, main threat for you, I'd say 60, 70 mile per hour winds is possible. Some small hail, also a possibility, and then a brief tornado will most likely end up being possible as well. But that tornado threat, anything more than saying a brief week spin up tornado is possible, it's just too much of a question mark. It would be ridiculous if this even got remotely close to comparing to March 14th. March 14th is one of the most violent tornado outbreaks. March 14th and March 15th will be one of the most violent tornado outbreaks that we've seen. I believe at least in the last 5 years, that is the most violent outbreak we've seen. So I don't think it will be even remotely close to March 14th for you. Not even remotely close. I don't even think it's close to comparable to that day. Tell your grandma I said thank you. Yeah, that was March 14th was ridiculous. Didn't that day have, correct me if I'm wrong, did it have 3 violent tornadoes? Right? I'm pretty sure it had 3 violent tornadoes. And then I know for a fact we had one on the 15th. Thank you, Otto, for the $1 sticker. I appreciate it. So I'm going to start heading off here. I know it's short, but we only do 1 hour briefings on this stream, so that way we can talk about absolutely everything. We make it as fast as we can and just get all the information out as fast as possible. Don't want to waste your time. So if you do want the latest information, you could just rewind the stream by about 40, 50 minutes. Every stream, every briefing, the first about 20 to 30 minutes is the most informative because that's where I'm rapidly going over every day for severe weather. And then normally once we hit that 40, 45 mark, that's where I stop rapid firing. If there is a strong tornado threat on Sunday, I think it would be in generally this area, Girl Dev. But I can't tell you, I can't really narrow it down even more. That's just a very, very broad area. But we're getting ready to end here. I'm going to check this one town in Texas real quick. All right, so you are in kind of south central, southeast Texas. You've got multiple threats for severe weather. Get out of the way. So today, not much, just some isolated thunderstorms. Tomorrow, you are in the threat for a spin-up tornado threat, but mainly damaging winds up to 60, 65 miles per hour and some large hail up to about an inch, inch and a half in diameter possible. Going on into Friday, same threats, low wind tornado threat, 60-mile-an-hour winds, probably 1-inch hail, all possible. And then Sunday, the threat's off to your north. So no notable threats for severe weather. You just want to keep an eye on, your local National Weather Service tomorrow and Thursday. Those are your main threats, or rather tomorrow and Friday. Today's Wednesday. So tomorrow and Friday. But no notable threats for severe weather for your area. But yeah, that's going to be it. I'm probably not going to cover the threat in the northwestern side of the U.S. today. It is a 5% tornado risk, but it's up in the mountainous terrain, so radar coverage is, well, garbage. It's terrible radar coverage up there. There is a radar over Portland, so that's good news, but yeah, that's going to be it for me. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. That's going to be it for today's live stream. I hope everybody has a fantastic rest of your Wednesday. A great rest of your Wednesday night. Just make sure if you are in the Pacific Northwest, Western Oregon, Western Washington, just keep an eye out. Main threat is going to be hail. Very weak, very brief spin up tornado threat. And some isolated damaging winds up to about 70 miles per hour. So pretty low wind threat. However, for the Pacific Northwest, that is like a extreme threat for severe weather because they don't typically get severe weather. So I'll keep you guys updated on the community post. I'm not 100% sure when my next live stream will be. Like I said, I get very busy this weekend. I'm sorry. I apologize. Just make sure you have multiple other ways to receive watch list warnings. You're very welcome to go watch other YouTube channels who do weather coverage. Just make sure you're weather aware and make sure you trust those people. So yeah, have a fantastic rest of your Wednesday night. And I'll catch you guys in the next live stream or video that I do. Thank you, mods, for on chat once again. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay safe and watch severe weather. Goodbye. thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next live stream that I do. Stay safe, watch for your weather. Thank you, Mods, for Mon Chat. Goodbye.